I didn't know what that was growing up. Like, what do you mean have compassion for yourself? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
um, and so I feel like that's the most transformative thing that has led me to lean into my authentic self and like be able to do that in small ways throughout my day.
Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in. Hello, hello, welcome back, beautiful humans. We are here today with another interview episode with my dear friend and past client, Katy Salce. She is a licensed psychotherapist born and raised in New York City. She is passionate about her work with people of color, specifically in helping to bring awareness to mental health challenges and finding ways to cope and transcend our traumas. Katy has utilized her mental health education and experiences to provide therapeutic coaching to high achieving individuals battling perfectionism and anxiety. She is true embodiment of what it is to be a walking leader, working on her own inner traumas as she helps others overcome theirs. We speak in this episode how perfectionism and anxiety have really gotten the best of her at times in her life and how she's overcame that through working with mentors and coaches and therapists and how she's still working on those things today, and that is completely normal and a part of the healing journey. She has so much wisdom to share. It was such a beautifully heartfelt episode that I really can't wait for you guys to dive into and really get to see and feel what it is to witness a true leader and healer in time as they go through their own healing journey. So, without further ado, dive in, enjoy, and I hope you gain as much from it as we did from this call ourselves. Katy, girly, what are we going to be
Yes.
talking about today? Can you tell us, like, what's
Mhm.
been your journey with perfectionism and how long did that go back into?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me here today. My journey with perfectionism, I feel like, has been basically my entire life ever since I can remember,
Mhm.
from a very young age. So, probably like, adolescence is when it would really like kind of kick in. I didn't really understand what perfectionism was or that I even had it until, my adult years, where I was like, okay, reflecting back on patterns of just wanting things to be a certain way and, feeling disappointed if I didn't quite meet those expectations or,
Mm.
maybe like not doing anything, like procrastinating on doing certain things that I really want to do because of the fear of like what others are going to think about it or, me being disappointed in myself if I didn't feel like I met that crazy bar that
Yeah.
I set for myself. So it's been a long journey into adulthood now.
Okay. And this bar that was set so high, was that only internally or was that also from caretakers or peers growing up? Where did that stem from?
Yeah. Um that's a good question. I think really it was internally, like I was kind of projecting this expectation of, what it should be. But also I think like my upbringing really impacted um me developing perfectionism, right? So like, you know, being raised in a chaotic like home environment and I love my mother and she really did the best that she could, but I think a lot of um, like her mood swings and her like criticism as to everything that I did really affected me growing up. And so I guess I held on to like that voice of my mother and like the criticism, and not really feeling enough for her. And that kind of translated into, then not feeling enough like for myself. I never kind of, I wasn't able to give that to myself until probably really like recent.
Okay, that's so important to dive into. So, I know that you've done massive inner work and you've come so far from those times in your life. And this might be helpful for anyone who's kind of like just starting that journey, or maybe they're in therapy or some type of self development themselves. So, mother wound, as you and I know, is huge, right? Our
Yeah,
mothers are huge components of our life, whether it's a positive impact or a negative one. It's the foundation. It's one of your main legs in your
yeah,
childhood, right? And so, do you remember, girly, like how young you can remember? And when I say this, I always just preface it. I know that your mother is a great person and that she did the best
yeah,
she could. And so, whenever we're talking about our parents, not just you and I, anyone in general,
yeah,
we want to honor the person. Today we're honoring you, Kathy, to share their experiences just as yours, and not trying to preface it by like, oh, but they were a great mom. Like, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that they're a great person. But I
yeah.
really want to hear your insight as to like how young can you remember mom criticizing you in ways that made you feel that you could be doing better?
Yeah. Mm, I'm really not quite sure of like the specific age, but I feel like it was pretty early on, like probably like 5 years old, from what I can guess.
It's young.
And it was just like little things, like it's weird that I remember this, but like she'll make me like handwrite my name, and if it wasn't perfect, like I she would keep having me like do it, and like just repetition with a lot of things. And so it started from an early age where it was like, oh, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. I have to keep doing it. And really, it came from a place of her just trying to like for me to have better, and
Yeah.
for me to like really pursue my education and really like try and ingrain that value in me. But of course, that led to some other things.
Of course, of course. Yeah. That makes complete
Mhm.
sense. Good intentions, just sometimes not the best
Yeah,
delivery, right? And
yeah.
so, fast forward a little bit, did that play a huge influence in you wanting to help others and join the work of the field of social work?
Yes. That's exactly like correct. I think a lot of us like social workers join the field because we have our own traumas and our own things that really propel us to want to serve others, and be that light, be that person that maybe we didn't have growing up, or whatever may be the reason. So I think that really kind of like influenced my decision. I didn't know what social work was though. Like this was like a journey and like a path, and life kind of led me into social work. Initially I wanted to be a psychologist, and like that's all I knew, right? Like psychologists do therapy. I had no idea that social workers can also practice and
Yeah.
be a psychotherapist. So I learned that towards the end of my college career. And so that was like a spontaneous decision for me to just apply randomly to Columbia. Because I was like, why not? Like, let's see. I didn't think I was gonna get in, and not that I wasn't qualified, and not that I'm not smart and all the things. But at that time, I didn't even see that as like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna get into Columbia. It was more just like, oh, let's see, let's try it out. So yeah, so um, I think definitely my experiences growing up, really led me into social work, specifically like during my adolescent years where
Mm.
I was like experiencing a lot of feelings and emotions that I that was like brewing from such a young age, and so many traumas that I had experienced, where I was starting to realize that I really did need help and I needed support. Um, and that's when I started to get into like the spiritual community and read books, and like Oprah was like my icon. Like I was
Mm.
like loved her.
I
I
love that.
actually yeah, I was like 16 listening to Oprah. I'm like but I actually did my college essay on Oprah,
Oh, you really loved
specifically.
Oprah. I love that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
people don't believe me when I say that. um, but I did it specifically on this quote that, like, I feel like really changed my life and the way that I view things. But basically, along the lines of like, you become what you believe.
Hmm.
And I started to really question, like, what do I believe in? What do I believe is true in my life, in myself, from an early age? And so
Hmm.
that's when I was like, this is really deep work. And I want to commit my life to doing this work and to helping others do the work as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And it's interesting
Yeah.
because, like, so for those of you that like Gathi and I have worked together, I met Gathi in the later
Mhm.
part of her professional career where you wanted to outdo more and build your own business and things of that sort. And so it's
Mhm.
funny because my follow up question was going to be, and I'm still going to ask it, but now you just gave me so much more beautiful intel to push it forward. So, Oprah being this big motivator in your life, and it's so powerful how that one quote shifted your perspective and gave you this
Mhm.
like ammunition and ignition to dedicate your life to this work. That's completely spiritual, and that's what some people would call their dharma of like, this is my purpose. Like, I want to do this work so
Yeah.
bad for myself and for others so I
Mhm.
can propel them forward. That's beautiful. Okay, so now we have the passion in there, right? So check, check, check. Great. This is like your life's work. And my question to you is, perfectionism is rooted in a lot of shame. So,
We're
but I
going
will
there.
say there's two sides of the coin, right? So, perfectionism can allow us, usually type A performers, to excel vigorously and do the most. And so
Mhm.
that's like a positive part of it. And then the other side, of course, is the self doubt and shame and all the things that come with it that sometimes hinders you from doing what you also want to continue doing. So my question to you, girly, because
Mhm.
I met you at a time where you were so busy. You were doing the most, and that's okay. We're creatures of habit. I was once there too, the workaholic, to having 10,000 jobs and wanting to be
Yeah.
everywhere. And, sometimes it's like lack of clarity and it's a journey and we're super young. So we have the time and we're growing and evolving. And yeah, like how did perfectionism aid you and also sometimes disempower you?
Mhm. Yeah, no, those are really good points of like how perfectionism really got me to like this place in my life, if I'm being honest, right? Like in a certain sense, like I was always thinking about what was next and like what I had to
Mm.
do to get to the next place, right? Like I went to college right away. And then after that, like I was working in like social services. And then I was like, I already had my acceptance into Columbia. So I knew that I was going to go and I was going to do an accelerated program on top of that. Like I wasn't
Of
going to do
course
the
you
basic,
were. Of course you were.
I wasn't going to do the basic 2 years because I'm like, that's going to take too long. Like I'm
Yeah.
just trying to hurry this up. So, so I did that. And then after that, like I was like, just working in the field and just trying to find my place. Um, so I think overall in my life, like perfectionism has helped me to, um, just really like try and achieve like a high standard of what I'm doing. Um, but then the downside of that is that it really affected my mental health. And so, in graduate school, I knew that I needed therapy. Like, again, like I knew it from a long time ago. Graduate school was basically that place where I just felt like now is the right time. And so I went into therapy at the start of my graduate school degree. And that's when I was able to really like work through a lot of the stuff that I was experiencing, because again, I went to Columbia, predominantly white institution. I was like one of the few people of color there. I felt very out of place. I felt like, we're talking about all these social justice topics, and I'm listening to these individuals that I felt had no personal experience or connection to what I experienced and what I saw others experience. Um,
Mm.
and I felt like, one, angry, and then also like it pushed me to say like I need to speak up. I need to express my opinion, and like I have value. I have
Mm.
something to offer here. But again, I was very like not shy, but I didn't like to speak up. I didn't like to raise my hand. Like that's something that I always struggled with. Even though I had so many brilliant ideas and things to share with the world, I really kept that in because of my perfectionism. Because I felt like if I didn't know, crazy, if I didn't know exactly what I was going to say, I didn't want to say it. Because what if, I was like rambling, and like what if I like panicked and like froze, and like everyone's looking at me and I feel super ashamed, again, like that feeling of shame.
Yeah.
Like trying to really avoid that feeling of shame.
Okay, so good segue point here, just a little bit. So the shame thing, I fully resonate with you. I remember, I think we all have this to an extent, and of course some worse than others. But if we're
Mhm.
we're talking about high performers, and that's a lot of pressure. Even if you're cool as a cucumber, like it's pressure to do all the things,
Yeah.
and figuring out why we want to do all the things, and like why we're programmed the way that we are. And so you sharing that piece earlier about growing up, even I'm like literally picturing you like handwriting something over and over again, and mom had good intentions, and it was just the act of doing it again until it was perfect, right? And if anything was less than
Mhm.
perfect, perhaps shameful, like not good enough, right? And
Yeah.
so here we are 10, 15 years later, you're in your college institution getting your master's, all the things, and public speaking or speaking aloud, whatever it may have, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to have an
Yeah.
awkward pause. I don't want to not know what the right thing to say is. It has to be written the perfect way the first time, or else it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I would literally like write down what I was thinking I was going to say. But it took me so long to like write things down that by the time I wrote it down, like we had already moved on. So
Mm.
then I'm like, I was just really struggling in graduate school. Like I was like,
Yeah.
you know, um, just trying to figure my place, like what my place was, and also just feeling this huge like feeling of urgency of like I need to talk, I need to speak up. This is what I like dreamed of doing. I want to fully be here and not like hide, you know.
Okay, I love that. So even through the
Mhm.
struggles of going back and forth in our heads of trying to be perfect and all the
Mhm.
things, even then you're still noticing like my voice is important here. And I have great perspective and experiences, and I can utilize that to help a larger community. And so it's kind of like I got to make it through, and I got to learn how to cope with this because my messages need to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was like the push that I needed, is to be in an environment where it's like I've learned so much and I've experienced so much and I have so much to offer. Like this is my chance to do that. And
Mm.
so I worked through a lot of that like in therapy. Because honestly, like that was like the number one like pivotal thing that happened in my life as well. Like I met my therapist at Columbia, and like just the most amazing human.
She's the
She
one that you still had even when we were in mentorship. She's the one that was
I
like,
think so.
okay, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So like she's Dominican and
Yeah.
black, I believe. And I had never like seen someone like that I knew that was she's a psychologist, that was doing therapy that was like similar to my background.
Yeah.
And so she really was like an inspiration to me, and she helped me to navigate all these feelings and to trust myself, to trust my intuition, to speak up, even if I felt like, I had an accent or I didn't sound as articulate as other individuals. Like, you have something to say, just say it, you know?
Mm. I love that. Can you share with us, like, I'm sure there were so many things that she helped you with. And I love that you kept her for a long time. That's a
Mhm.
relationship that has evolved, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And she's seen you grow and evolve. And I think when it comes to therapy and or mentorship, there's really something so powerful about sticking with it through the evolutions and through the
Mhm.
changes. So, what would you say were some of the biggest lessons that you learned in therapy, or even and or coping skills that really allowed you to get through your perfectionism or work with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, there was a lot. There was a lot that like happened and that I processed in therapy. I think reflecting back on it, the main thing was just feeling like I am enough. That was like the biggest, I feel like, thing that I worked on and I'm still working on. I think a lot of us have this wound of feeling like we are just not enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I felt like, during my sessions and during my time with, my previous therapist, often it felt like I was doing so much. And so this is like kind of where like my people pleasing and me wanting to like for everyone to just love me and like accept me and support me in the way that I wanted to. Um, where this kind of showed up because
Mm-hmm.
um, I was exhausted. I was exhausted by feeling like I had to, um, perform. It was like a performance for other people, like within my work environment, in my relationships. It was like I had to be this perfect friend. I had to be this perfect partner. I had to be this perfect
Mm-hmm.
employee. And it was freaking exhausting. Like I didn't allow for any like error or like just humanness to exist, right?
Or your
And
true,
I
authentic self to exist.
yes, yeah, yeah. Because I felt like I had to put this image of who I was to the world in order to receive that acceptance. So that was the biggest, I feel like, piece that I worked on in therapy, but also just understanding how systems, and how race, how my experiences all really inform like the way that I interpret things and the way that I absorb everything. And so just being reminded of like how race can impact, our experiences specifically, like when I was in Colombia and like, I sometimes I just felt very awkward or like someone would say something that I'm like, oh, this is kind of offensive, but I don't like, I'm not sure like if
Mm-hmm.
this is just me being dramatic. Again, so that it was partly part of that was also like getting in touch with my intuition. So like I felt like I was very naive. So I gave people like just the benefit of the doubt. Like I didn't want to think that others were like being malicious or had some weird intentions. I realized that in therapy, like I was just not really seeing clearly as to how others were, you know, impacting me. And so that was also another process of just getting in touch with my intuition. Like I felt like something was off about this person or like this comment that they made wasn't didn't feel right to me. But I typically ignored that for such a long time in my life because of my past traumas that I didn't know what was my intuition and what was just my anxiety.
That's huge. It's actually a topic that I cover a lot. If it's not ironic with my mothers, because in this is a I'm
Mhm.
not going to go there too deeply, but within motherhood, that's a big thing. We have a baby for the
Mhm.
first time, and we can relate that to anything new in life. And it's like is this my
Mhm.
anxiety or is something actually wrong here?
Yeah.
Right. And that's so common for the everyday individual as well. And I always say for me, and you let me know if this resonates, because I had to decipher that within my own life. And of like, as you know, I'm super spiritual and it only continues to get stronger. And as we dip more into like the woo, it's like, whoa, hold up, like what's real and what's not. And, it's a beautiful, mystical place to be in. And so for me, groundedness lets me know that it's an intuitive thing versus anxiety kind of feels like I'm running out of breath, like am I supposed to do this, or my thoughts are racing and like you're
Panic.
going back and panic, right?
Yeah.
Versus like an intuitive message of like don't do this or this isn't good for us or whatever may have you is more like sound.
Mhm.
The anxiety or the overthinking for me happens when I receive the download of a very calm message, and then I'm like, really? Are you sure? Like it was already received in a calm place, and then I tend to
The ego. Hmm.
question it sometimes, and then it leads into the back and forth of anxiety. But where did the initial lean or nudge? Was it a anxious back and forth kind of
Hmm.
nudge, or was it a very sounding, grounding direction for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think of it as like a silent like whisper type of thing. So
Mm,
like you will that exactly what you said, like it's not loud, it's not like you need to do this now. It's very silent and it's like it's a feeling and it's a like a download that you get and you decide whether that's something that you want to like really lean into and like listen to, or if you let like I feel like the ego get in the way and
yeah,
bring
literally.
in all
Yes.
your projections and all your shit
Yes.
into it, and then you're like, oh shit, it's lost, the message is
Hmm.
lost, but
Literally.
I feel like the universe has a way of really bringing things back to you,
Mm,
right? Like the same lessons, like, if you didn't learn it the first time, it will come back to
hmm.
you.
Hmm.
And so that's never going to, per se, like leave you. Like your intuition will always be there. It's just about like clearing the space so that you can listen. Ooh, mosquito. You can listen
Yeah.
to that intuitive like nudge.
Yeah, I want to bring up a couple of points that you said in like what's helped you navigate through perfectionism. So, it's nice that and maybe this wasn't always the case for you, but that that it's the overarching umbrella of perfectionism, which is obviously rooted in early childhood trauma for you specifically, right? Sometimes when
Mhm.
people seek help, whether they're going into mentorship or counseling or coaching, whatever it may have you, they tend to go in with like one thing. It's like, I have a really hard time doing X thing, right? Or, and that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay to do that too, right? And so, but what I'm getting at is that notion of like no matter where you go or what you do, there you are. I always explain that like humans are like robots in a sense, and we kind of just output the same thing over and over again until we really, really learn the lesson, or we have enough consciousness or
Mhm.
awareness that like this has to change, and this isn't serving us in X, Y, and Z manner. So, in your
Yeah.
time of working with your therapist, you learned that perfectionism was showing up for you in all places of your life, within your friend, being the perfect friend, at work, being a people
Mhm.
pleaser for random things. When it came to you and I working together, it was for you to launch your
That's
business,
her. Yeah.
and it was so much just us being inside of our heads. And so I'm sharing because I want our audience to know that if this is causing us to reflect, which I hope that it is, take notice that it's not just in the one area that you're thinking about. It's in
Yeah.
many areas of your life because you're showing up as you in all of those arenas. And you will continue to do the same habits over and over again until you wake up. Right. So
Mhm.
I want well, we'll talk about the entrepreneurship piece in a little bit, but I also want to hear about, like, it sounds like you've shifted because you've had that awareness, and we know it's a forever working piece of yours, but it sounds like you're living a life with more authenticity of who you really are as a person. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, yes. That makes me so emotional. Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel like I have. leaned into just myself, my true self, and I've allowed myself to just be. Um, and it's like you said, a journey that's still evolving. Um, but I think the biggest piece for me is like having grace for myself and having compassion for myself.
Mm,
Like, I didn't understand those concepts really like until probably a couple years back. Um, and now it's when I'm actually like integrating that into my life.
mm,
Um, because I didn't know what that was growing up. Like, what do you mean have compassion for yourself? Like, what are you talking about?
yeah.
um, and so I feel like that's the most transformative thing that has led me to lean into my authentic self and like be able to do that in small ways throughout my day, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's times when I feel like, I don't know, I didn't feel like myself there, or like, I kind of got lost in the sauce for a second. Like, what was
Mm,
that? Let me like take a step back and like reflect on that in the
mm,
most compassionate way. Because, if it was me back then, I would have been like, come on, bro, like you're so stupid. Like, why were you acting like that? Like, it's like this very
mm,
critical voice that a
mhm.
lot of us have. Um, and so now I feel like that has shifted, and like I'm still doing the work to make sure that I'm implementing that.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving myself grace. Like, girl, you're doing the best that you can. It's all good. You know, you will continue to just lean into more of who you are. There's no rush. Um, and just like be nice. Be nice to yourself.
Mhm. I love that. Like it sounds so simple, but it's actually really hard.
So hard.
Yeah, you're getting into a place where there's different stages of awareness and healing and working on yourself and right. And so like some of the early steps is just like, wait, whoa, I have a problem. Like, like something's not going well for me here and I could be doing something different. So it's just that awareness piece and then actually doing something about it, whether it be via coping skills or going to therapy or whatever may have you, but then you authentically or in real time catching yourself. Because for those of us that know when we're on a healing journey, we're talking about something that happened to you when you were 5 at the very, very beginning in your life. That's where a lot of our perspectives and personalities are created at a young, young age of what we're absorbing at that time. So to think that, oh, I know
Mhm.
better now, so I'll do better, it's not that easy, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll catch ourselves still acting in old behavioral patterns unconsciously. And then the work shows when you're able to catch it in real time. And for me, that's what I call resiliency. It's like, okay, I fell into a
Mhm.
bad habit. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm aware of it. Let me hold space for myself or my inner child and say, like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Curious voice instead of critical voice of like, wait, how can I help us
Mhm.
make this better? How can I hold space for you? And what is it that you're needing at this time? And why did you react in old patterns? What triggered you to
Yes.
do that? Right. So you
Yeah.
literally start to like therapy yourself.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
growth of healing and evolution over time and also being wise enough to know the same way that you said the universe will most definitely give you the same messages over and over and over again until you really, it's like clear yourself from like that karmic debt, right? That you've been
Mhm.
holding
Yeah.
on to for so long. So we've mastered it in like in one arena of our life, and then it's time to go to the next. And it might be an easy switch over maneuver to do the same cleansing work there. But sometimes we still have really strong blinders. And
Oh
like,
yeah.
even though we know all the things, we're not seeing it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So what's coming up for you now? What you're like, yes, I
No,
see
it
that.
was
Yes.
so good. No, it's like sorry, everything is just so good. I'm getting so many ideas. Um, I think also like a part of my healing has been like being a therapist,
Yeah.
and like holding space for others and understanding and coming in with that compassionate approach, and like just understanding all the things and how our childhood impacts what we experience now, and how the unconscious shows up in our everyday, like all these things I feel like help to clarify things and create like a deep understanding of our mental health and our experience, and then like for me to be able to do that and like hold space for myself, right? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm doing this for everyone else. How am I doing this for myself? So
Yup.
that was like the reflection piece of like, okay, you know, um, there was so much in there. I feel like I'm forgetting what else.
That's okay.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, we were talking about like the lessons coming back to you and being blindsided
yeah,
in certain
oh
areas of
yeah,
your life. Yeah.
yeah. So just I just want to say this because I feel like a lot of us have this idea that as therapists or coaches or whatever it is, whatever field you're in, that
Mm-hmm.
you have to be like you have to be at a certain like level all the time, like you have to be perfect in a sense, right? Like you can't be human and learn and still be experiencing and
Mm-hmm.
learning certain lessons. And I think that was also like the learning that I had to do, where it was like I felt like I couldn't launch my coaching business because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm completely healed or like in this
Mm-hmm.
place where I'm like, a god, which I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
will ever be a god, but it was like this like top
Yeah.
level where I'm like, I need to be in this place to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
um and so when I like reflected back, and I'm like, no, like I don't have to be in this place. Like hopefully eventually like I'll get to that place, but there's still so much of the journey
Mm-hmm.
that I have learned within my time, and like there's so much there that
Mm-hmm.
happened that I
Mm-hmm.
can go back and support others in
Yeah,
getting to the place that I'm in now,
absolutely.
or maybe surpass that place that I'm in now, right? Because everyone's journey is different. um and so just valuing like my experience and what I have to offer to the world. And that was
Mm.
kind of like my blinder, because it was like I'm you know have this expectation for myself, and like I can't do this unless I have this certain level. And just in general, like in other areas of my life, right, it shows up that perfectionism. And within therapy, within my work with you, Julissa, like I was able to really understand like how my perfectionism was showing up like in my coaching business, right, in even working with my clients, um
Mm.
and my relationships. That was a huge thing, right? Because it's all about relationships at the end of the
Mhm.
day. Like
Mhm.
it's all about like we learn in relationship, we heal in relationship,
Mm.
right? we
Mm.
we need community, we need each
Mhm.
other.
Mhm.
And so I was realizing that I was accepting relationships in my life that really weren't serving me.
Mm.
And that was also like translating to other areas of my life where I was accepting things that weren't really serving me and like were not healthy for me. And until I was able to finally say like enough is enough, and that's something that I don't want to engage in anymore, is when I was able to really open up the door
Mm.
to other opportunities that were more like aligned with me and creating more spaciousness in my life. And like I love being able to like work from home on certain days, and see clients that I'm really excited about, and not have to accept, not being paid my worth, things like that. So it
Mm.
shows up in so many areas, and like we're human as well. Like we have our blind spots, and that's normal and that's okay. And that's why, you have a coach, you have a therapist, you have mentors, you have other individuals in your life to help
Mhm.
you see through those blind spots.
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate wholeheartedly with everything you said. I love the piece about relationships. We really do learn in community. I mean, I think about everything as children and as we grow up, it's like we're our family, are our first learners. Those are our first relationships, right? And then we go to
Hmm.
school or we go into some kind of institution and we're having friends and we have,
Yeah.
fights or things that are happening and we have best friends and we learn what that's, it's just we literally learn through engaging with others. That's so very much, yeah, true. And the relationship that you hold to self is a relationship. Right.
Mm.
And so I would say for you and for probably many individuals, when you learn how to find true love and nurturance within, then you can be this leader that you're intended to be. And like you said, the leader doesn't have to be all the way up here to lead. Your own growth and evolution, you can just lend your hand backwards and see who needs to be lifted to this next level. And
Mhm.
that can be done at any level. There's always someone that's going to need help or assistance, climbing up with them. So I think
Mhm.
your story is beautiful because I'm sure a lot of people can relate of how we've all felt. We said prior, at the root of perfectionism is shame. We've all felt shame and we've all felt like we weren't good enough or not worthy in some facet or capacity. And for me, there's this big distinction between shame and toxic guilt, right? Where I think shame is a little bit healthy. It makes you reflect. What's, if you can handle it appropriately, right? What's coming up for me at this time? Why am I feeling like this? Where does this stem from? All those very inquisitive, non judgmental questions that we can ask self, or someone's asking it for us if we don't have the skills to do that yet, right? And toxic guilt is when you're so overboard that you go to the other side where it really does paralyze you and it becomes a part of your
Mhm.
identity. And it's like, oh my God, like I could never do something like this. Whatever your beliefs are, I'm not
Yes.
good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not healed enough. Like, whatever. And for anyone who's teetering, like I would say, if you're listening to this, you're probably on a good route of talking to yourself a little bit more nicely. You're wanting to
Mhm.
listen to platforms that are educating you on things of that sort so that you're not lost, because you'd only go to the toxic guilt portion depending on like how much trauma you've had. But if there's no help, if there's no light, and what you said that is so essential is that yes, even though Kathy and I are both from the same field of psychotherapy and all the things, and I am a huge proponent of like I will have a spiritual healer, a therapist from time to time, a coach, a mentor, somebody paving the way, leading the way, because me by myself, I'm better with a team.
Yeah. Yeah. We're better in community.
Hmm.
Um, and that's something that also I had to learn because like there's this like hyper independence that I
Hmm.
felt from very early on because of my environment, right? Like I had to kind of figure it out for myself and my family, I felt like. And I was kind of like always trying to manage other people's emotions. And so I carried that on into my
Hmm.
adulthood where it's like, I can do all the things and I don't need that support. And I quickly realized that, I really am better with other people's support and like
Yeah,
I can also offer that support and community to other individuals. So it's
yeah,
it's a really beautiful thing when you allow for others to support you and to like just be in community and just hold space.
yeah. It's a form of self love, the act of receiving, allowing yourself to receive,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, girly, I have one last question to ask you. So, in this time, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable, with your story and helping us understand why we are the way we are, even through your own story. So, what's something right now that you're still working through, and how perfectionism is something that is causing a little bit of a rift in this part of your life that you're working through at this time?
Yeah. Oh man. How much time do you have? I'm just kidding. Okay. Yeah. I think for me, right now in like my career as, a licensed psychotherapist, and moving into being able to practice like independently pretty soon. It's been really tough to like sustain myself financially, and I think a lot of us are currently experiencing this with like inflation and just
Mm,
outrageous like cost of living. And you
yeah.
know I live on my own, so I have to like pay my own bills, and like rent in New York City is no joke. um, and so I'm not making as much money to be able to like invest, right? Because I'm a big like finance person. Like I love all things finance, and I'm a heavy investor, and like I'm not able to invest as much, and I'm not able to save, right? Like I don't have the huge emergency fund that I had before because I had to move, and you have to pay like
Mm,
broker's fee and like all these, things. Um, and so my biggest struggle right now is that, because like my perfectionism shows up also within my finances, where it's like I'm constantly looking at my budget, right?
mm,
I'm constantly like, okay, did I need to spend this money? Could I have saved this? Feeling guilty that I'm like spending on certain things, like, I don't know, Starbucks,
mhm.
things like that. And then also like overworking myself too at times, where it's like I really um, want to not think about like money as much as I'm thinking about it now. But because I haven't reached that level yet, and like it's like right there, I my perfectionism is showing up, right? Because I'm
Mm,
like really like focused on, where my money, like how much money I'm making, all the things. Um, and so I'm kind of struggling between like resting and giving myself like grace and like being patient, which I think is like something I struggle with. Um, like trusting the process that I will get to that place that I want to get to financially, and like
yeah.
um also within
Mm,
my coaching business, like I feel like I want to really dedicate so much time and so much energy to it, but I feel depleted because I'm working so hard to just survive.
yeah.
um so that's been a real struggle for me recently.
Thank you for sharing, girly. That's yeah, that's some real stuff. Perfectionism showing up in other places, even within finances, right? Just the checking over and over again and then not trusting. And again, if we go back to the core of what it is for you, it's this isn't good. This isn't perfect. I'm not doing good enough. I'm supposed to be saving more. I know better. I'm a big finance person. Like, why don't I have more money in the bank? Like, why aren't I
Yeah.
giving enough time? It's just that inner critic that's coming up for you at this time. And I want to pull back what we both said earlier about spiritual messages coming in versus the ego taking over. So right now we're in a place of fear. Ego's most definitely taking over, and they're doing what I'm calling it a he. I feel like it's a he for you. He's doing what he knows best,
Yeah,
and he's like
probably.
check the numbers, check the Excel sheet. How much do we have coming in? Like, why aren't you saving enough? Like, and all
Yeah.
the things. And he will only get louder the more that you feed it.
Hmm.
Right. And so I'm not saying to avoid him, I'm saying to hold space for him. And,
Yeah.
inner child healing is all about nurturing and reparenting and, holding space and guiding them through. And so your inner child is very much stuck, like his eyes are shut and his fists are clenched of like, no, we have to focus on the numbers. Like that is what's important, and your
Yeah.
spiritual, more expansive side, we spoke earlier about how it's a very much it's a download, it's a gentle nudge of that things are going to
Mhm.
be well. And since we're having a hard time trusting the process, sometimes cognitively we have to remember all the times in our life where spirit, God, universe has most definitely wrapped their arms around us and kept us safe,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah, I
so
love that.
if your ego is searching for hardcore, like we're just talking to him, right? And it's like, okay, well, what do
Mhm.
you need? What do you need me to show you that we're going to be okay? Right? You need me to show you proof and evidence that life is going to be okay? Okay, let's think about it. We've continuously leveled up, right? From the jobs that we've worked to the different things that we're doing with our life to
Mhm.
our insight and growth on a healing journey. And every single time I do this, we do this, life around us gets better. Like, yeah, I had to take
Mhm.
out money, for broker's fee and all the things, but we're in a better apartment, right?
Yeah.
We're in a better place in our lives. Like, yes, I had to hustle really hard and do all the things, but now I'm
Mhm.
slowly but surely learning what work life balance can look like for me. Even though it's not where I want it to be, we're on a better path, right? So life continues to get better for
Mhm.
us. So, I would even ask you if you could put your hand over your heart and think about
Mhm.
how does he show up when he's number crunching. Like, if you could close your eyes and see, and maybe it's a
Mhm.
little girl with inside of you. I had called it a he for now, but
Mhm.
we're open to it changing. How
Mhm.
does he or she stand in your heart space when they're number crunching and when they don't feel safe? Are they crouched?
Mhm.
Is their jaw clenched? Are their fists, tightened? How do they look and how do they feel?
Mhm. Yeah. It feels very tight. It feels
Tight.
very restrictive, right? It
Yeah.
feels very controlling.
Okay.
Um, it
And can you
feels
go ahead?
like I'm like, in fight or flight. Like I'm in this sense
Mm,
of either like freeze or like fighting, like
mm,
trying to figure out like what do I need to do to make sure that everything is okay, because I've always had
mm.
to do the things to make sure that I was okay. Like I felt like I didn't have other people like supporting and looking out for me in that way, like
Mm.
financially. I've worked since I was 15 years old, and I've really like
Mm.
sustained myself. Like I, you know, figured it out and went away to in college, and I worked in college. Like I've always worked throughout, even in graduate school.
Yeah, I feel
And
you.
so I told myself like I would never be in this place again where I
Shame. Here comes
didn't
the shame
have
again.
a backup, like, my first job, I was let go of, after like 2 years. I was in high school. It was like, really like silly job. But it was, providing me with some money to like buy clothes and like all the things. Um, and so I think it really stems from a lot of the trauma that I experienced.
Yeah,
I didn't grow up with money, and like we didn't have money just abundantly.
yeah.
So now it feels really unsafe to not know, like, more or less like how much money I'm going to be bringing in.
So I'm going to
And
restructure. We're going to take a
yeah.
pause. We're going to restructure only because, so I'm noticing, right, as you're talking, so there's a moment of, I'm really bringing in like somatic work into my practice recently, and it's
Yeah.
phenomenal because we're such intelligent beings. You are so intelligent, very much educated. You can very much have awareness of your thoughts, and the only problem that
Mhm.
that comes with sometimes, and I'm a culprit of it too, is that
Oh
we
yeah.
get right back into our heads. And
Oh yeah.
so the head, the thinking is what's allowing the ego to gain more momentum. Oh, this is
Mhm.
true because yes, and I've always worked so hard. And it's like, you betcha, girl. That's why we're working hard right now. Look at the numbers, right? So he's like, look at the numbers, And so all you're doing is just reaffirming him of like,
Oh, that's so
I'm doing
funny.
my job well. I'm keeping you safe, Kathy. Like, we gotta look at the numbers. Like, yes, we worked hard, And so if we could
Yeah.
reel it back in a little bit and
Mhm.
put your heart over your
Mhm.
chest. We're looking for what you
Mhm.
said: connection,
Mhm.
relationship. You're trying to form
Mhm.
relationship to the part of yourself that's very much in survival mode, even when things are grand around you, they don't believe it just yet. And that's okay. So we want to give him a message like, hey, I get it. You showed up for me when times were really rough. And I so appreciate that of you. What I'm saying now, adult Kathy, what I'm saying now is that we can live a better life, but you're going to have to learn how to trust me. And the only way that I can do that now is by connecting with you somatically within the body. So close your eyes and remember again, it feels tense. It feels constricting in your body. I know this is a podcast, but if you can watch it on the YouTube, if you're not seeing this, can you mimic to us what it feels like physically to be that survival part of you? Are they crouched? Is your jaw clenched? Are your fists tight? Are your eyebrows scrunched? Like, what you show me right now in real time what that looks like, what they feel like when they're number crunching and not feeling safe. Don't think about it and explain it. I want you to show me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for me, it's like I'm not getting an image per se. I'm getting more of like an energy. I'm
Okay.
getting more of like restriction. I'm getting
Can you
more of
show
like
me?
not breathe, like my heart racing, anxiety.
Okay.
Um,
That's coming up for you right
I'm
now.
getting fear of like not being safe.
Okay.
Um,
Let's stop. So enough with the fueling of it, right? Thank you for sharing. It's an energy that doesn't feel good, right? So what do they need for us to help it feel better? Do they need a hug?
yeah.
Do they just need some silence because the thoughts is what makes it grow rapid? And maybe in silence, we're just telling them that they're loved, that we're safe, and that we're cared for. That we got this. We've done this for so long by ourselves, and now we don't have to be by ourselves anymore. We have wonderful community. We have mentors and friends and leaders and healers in our pocket that we can go to at any time. And I want you to ask him or her, is it a boy or a girl?
Boy,
It's a boy. I felt that too.
masculine.
Very
Like
much
I feel like this is
masculine.
very much
Yeah.
masculine.
Can we ask him to politely take a seat? I want you to ask him, like, hey, thank you so much for showing up for us in this way for so many years. Trust me to take the driver's seat this time around. I know it's hard and we're not used to it. I'm scared too, even as I'm leading you, but I know it's for the better. And I need you to trust me. And if you need proof that this is going to be okay, let's reflect on all the hardships of our past and how it was always okay without us doing the hard work. We were doing the hard work, but that's not what got us there all the time. Somebody was there to help us. Somebody was there to guide us, even though we felt alone. Universe always has our back. God, universe, they're always here to help us. We just haven't always seen it, but they've been on our side this whole time. Allow me to be the voice of reason, the adult Gati. Allow Gati to be the voice of reason at this time. And I'm asking you to let go of the reins that you so tightly grip your hands over. And when you show up, I'll remind you of this message. And maybe I'll talk to you nightly in journals or in prayer or in meditation, because it sounds like you need more connection to let us know that we're safe. Okay. He's strong. He's very much scared.
Oh yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's more connection work to be done there. What do you
Yeah.
think is a
No.
good follow up for you? You think you'll do this? You think you'll talk to him more moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've, and we did some of this work within, our one-on-one coaching, and that really helped me to get in touch with what aligned action I wanted to take in my life. And I feel like I haven't been able to do that work, since we finished our time together. And so I'm remembering,
Hmm.
this person that like wanted to
He needs your
just have
attention.
control, like,
Yeah.
wanting to fix things. And I want to talk to it more. I want to connect to that, inner child, what
Yeah.
I feel like is my inner child, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and like let let them know that it's okay, and that it doesn't have to be the same way, and I don't have to have this urgency or sense of um, fear with all the things, and like just trusting
Yeah.
more.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for letting me
Thank
take you
you.
there and for being open and honest with us and vulnerable. And this is what it looks like, you guys, right? This is what it looks like to lean in and be vulnerable and
Mhm.
honestly just have radical honesty, to have the breakthroughs
Mhm.
with ourselves. So, thank you so much, Kathy, for being on this
Thank
episode with. This was an
you.
amazing episode, and my heart is warm. So, tell our listeners where they can find you, how they can work with you, and yeah, what's the easiest way to find you?
Yeah. Well, before I do that, I just wanted to thank you, Jaleesa, for having me on, for all of your mentorship and guidance within the past 2 years, and for always just holding space and being such a light.
Hmm.
Um, and I really, really appreciate you being
Hmm.
here and offering it to the rest of the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram at Katy Salce, so KatySalce. So you'll be able to find me on there most easily. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can also look me up on there. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jaleesa. It's
You're
been
so welcome.
amazing, such an amazing, like, juicy conversation. I can't wait to like hear it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are off this for now until next time. Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.